Well, hi everybody. Yesterday I got playing some of the earlier exercises that I used to do when I was just getting started to play the violin. So I was doing this one. You might recognize. This is Perpetual Motion. Whoa, it's still as hard as ever to play that perfectly. And then I went on to the variation of it, which was even worse. Whoa, just so hard to play it perfectly. Now, some of you might have caught on to the fact that I've been trying to learn to play the violin for quite a while now. I worked it out this morning, about 35 years. And you might ask yourself, why can't you play at a professional level after 35 years of trying to learn? And the simple answer is that I haven't done enough practicing consistently, and I haven't done enough things like I just did there with Perpetual Motion to really try to make each exercise perfect and do the exercise. So I wanted to express my admiration for all of you that I see working on early pieces and working so hard on things like the vibrato exercise, all the formal exercises that will make you really good. Now, I read years ago that you can't learn to play the violin unless you start as a child, because you won't have the neurons in your brain to support being an excellent violinist. And this turns out to not be true at all. But the difference is that if you're 5 years old or 7 years old and you're walking around with a quarter-size violin making horrible noises on it, everybody looks at you and says, "Oh, was that Beethoven? Was that Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? Could you play that again for me?" Now, if you try that when you're 40, you're not going to get the same response. In fact, the general response is going to be, "Oh, for God's sakes, give it up." The assumption is that you're as good as you're ever going to get. Now, I started late. I had my first violin lesson when I was about 7 years old, because I wanted to play the violin, and I told my mother that I wanted to play the violin. So she went to my uncle and she got a violin and had it repaired and got a new bridge for it and made me a little tiny pad that went on the underside of the violin, which I still have, and sent me up the lane to Mrs. Chadwick, who I thought was like 110 years old. She might have been in her 40s for all I know. But Mrs. Chadwick wanted me to hold the violin with just my head and shoulders, and it really hurt to do that. And then she wanted my elbow way over and my wrist like this and my fingers in a wheelie, and then she'd put my hands on the bow, and everything just felt really awkward, and I made a sound like cutting a cat in half with a hacksaw. And I had 2 lessons and I quit. I told my mother I didn't want to learn to play the violin anymore. But that was always my childhood failure. I always thought, I really wanted to learn to play the violin. I just didn't have whatever it takes to make me stick with it. So when my kids were old enough to start Suzuki violin, I started taking them and I started helping them practice. And I got hooked. And I started to try to learn how to play the violin. And so I was in my 40s when that happened. And I can tell you that you don't get the same respect that you get as a child. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, except to say that the reason I don't play as well as I'd like to play is simply that I haven't practiced consistently enough, and that it takes about, when you start in middle age to play the violin, you are going to sound as bad as that child sounds for a couple of years. It takes a couple of years to get a decent note on a violin, and it takes a lot longer than that to get a note you really like. So you're going to have to sound as bad as that child sounds when you start to play, and everybody's going to look at you like you're a bit of a nutcase for even trying, but it's really worth it if you can get really stubborn, and you'll find that you get more and more gratification the further along you get. And now I'm loving the violin, and this 100-day challenge has been the longest extended period of really consistent practice I think I've ever had, and I've got to thank Laura for that. And I just wanted to tell all of you people that you're really courageous to be doing this and to keep going, because it's very gratifying in the end. I'm at the point now where people tell me I don't sound so bad, and that feels really good. So thank you all for that, and I'm going to try Perpetual Motion one more time just to see if I can do it a little better.